I'm just going to stand. Good morning. Before we begin our soul singing today, I invite you to get a chalice or a candle for those of us who are joining us virtually, so you can light with us when we light our chalice. I invite you to stand in body or spirit and join me in singing hymn number 311, Let It Be a Dance, verses 1 and 3. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let the rain. Share the laughter, hear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Enter, rejoice, and come into our multi-platform space here at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Miami, or as we affectionately call it, UU Miami. As a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, we bring a liberal religious voice to the great city of Miami. I am Jane Thayer. I use the pronouns she, her. I'm a white, cisgender, middle-aged, confirmed by Google, middle-aged woman. I'm wearing red with flowers on it. You'll understand why. My yellow membership lanyard as well. UU Miami wants to acknowledge that we gather on the traditional land of the Miccosukee, Tequesta, and Seminole people, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it through the generations. May we continue to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit as well. UU Miami is a community of brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers. We invite you to learn more about us. Please contact our minister, Reverend Tom Capo, at minister@uumiami.org. If you have any questions, we also have website and social media you can see on the screen. Today's service is our annual Flower Communion led by Andie Arthur. Now, please join me in our unison affirmation, first in English and then in Spanish. Love is the spirit of this faith, and service is its prayer. In love, we agree to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another.
El amor es el espíritu de nuestra fe y el servicio es su oración. En amor acordamos vivir unidos en paz, buscar el conocimiento en libertad y ayudarnos el uno al otro.
Okay, perfect. All right. Teamwork. Our chalice lighting words today are from Reverend Amy Zucker Morgenstern. Within the heart of the flower, the fountain of beauty. Within the heart of the community, a fire that warms and dances. Within the heart of each of us, a spark of the spirit of life. Holy, holy, holy.
All right, now is the time in our service that we set aside to share joys and sorrows that some of you carry in your hearts. In this time of reverence and fellowship, we affirm as a community that we share in your sorrow and rejoice in your happiness. When you come forward to share a joy or sorrow, please say your name and speak into the microphone. That's for our listeners away so they can hear you. So that we know and can hear you while you share. And please remember that this is live stream, so the online members of our community can share in this moment. Those of you who are online, feel free to share in the chat any joy or sorrow that you wish. You are now invited to come forward and share a joy or sorrow with this, your faith community.
I'm Bob Jacober. Good morning, everybody. 'Tis the service of the flower as we gather tribe together for UU Miami Sunday's hour. Let the beauty of a flower bring us pleasant thoughts and smells, as each flower species has a secret of which often no one tells. For most of them, their goal is to attract lots of bees, and their lovely lacy colors do this job with ease. The results are the delicious fruits and grains that we all eat. So thank you, all you flowers, for your endless bounty treat, and for your companion bees that make beloved honey so sweet. I wish that I could thank you all with an electronic suite. For many, flowers symbolize love, but if they're roses, wear a glove.
Thank you, Bob.
Hello, can you hear me? My name is Martha Harrison, and I have a huge joy to share with all of you. And that is that one of my granddaughters, Phoebe, is graduating from high school in Portland, Oregon. And I don't usually brag very much, but I am going to just brag here. Phoebe goes to a huge high school in Portland, Oregon. There are over 1,000 students graduating in her class. And so there are several valedictorians. And I want you to know Phoebe is one of them. Thank you, thank you. And the big joy is that I am going to be there. I'm going to be there to see Phoebe graduating. And she's graduating next Tuesday. And so I'm flying out there. And as you know, my sweetheart husband, Christopher, journeyed off to the role of very beloved ancestor a year and 8 months ago. And Christopher was an explorer, and he and I traveled all over the world. Ethiopia, the first 3 months we were married, I met him in Colombo. It was called Ceylon then. Anyway, this is a big thing for me. This is the first time since Christopher journeyed off that I'm taking a trip So I'm a little scared, but I am incredibly joyful and incredibly grateful that I can do it.
Okay, my name is Carol Gassaway. Some of you know who I am. I have been absent for a while, not for any particular reason except that I'm falling apart. But anyway, I wanted to share with you a very special joy for me. I had a reunion with my 2 adopted children who are now adults. We had not seen each other in 22 years. We had not been together for much longer than that. I don't even know. That doesn't matter. It was a very special time. It could not have been any better. We didn't rehash any old business. We celebrated just being together. And so this is a very special thing that I would like to share with this community, because you have been so loving, caring, and supporting of me for so many years. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Diane. These are hard acts to follow up. But I am here to share a joy. I have had one of my very best friends of my whole life since I was 15 years old. We are still friends today. I got to spend the weekend with him and his family, and to see him after, I'm way older than 15 now, with his wife and his 2 daughters, who I've really bonded with the daughters, and it was just so magical for me to spend the weekend with them, to have a lifelong friend like that, and that the next generation I'm becoming friends with his family. So that made me really happy. Thank you.
And for any joys or sorrows not shared and carried on your heart, we just know that they're there and we honor them. All right. Oh, you are doing that. I am so sorry. Thank you, Joseph. That was beautiful. So today, June 4th, 2023, is the 100th anniversary of the first Flower Communion. We'll get more into what that means later on in the service, but I'm going to honor that with a beautiful poem from Lynn Unger. What a gathering. The purple tongues of the iris licking out at spikes of lupine, the orange crepe skirts of poppies lifting up over buttercup and daisy. Who can be grim in the face of such abundance? There is nothing to compare, no need for beauty to compete. The voluptuous rhododendron and the plain grass are equally filled with themselves, equally the miracles of color and form. This is what community looks like. This vibrant jostle, stem by stem, declaring the marvelous joining. This is the face of communion, the incarnation once more, gracefully resurrected from winter. Hold these things together in your sight, the purple, the crimson, the magenta, and blue. You will be feasting on this long after the flowers have gone.
The following is a story of how Norbert Capek came to create and host the first flower communion 100 years ago today. It is adapted from a version written by Teresa and David Schwartz. When he was growing up, Capek's mother was a devout Catholic, his father agnostic. He became an acolyte at age 10 in 1890 at St. Martin's Catholic Church. In the years that followed, he became disillusioned. His priest was a cynic. At 18, apprenticed to his uncle, a successful tailor in Vienna, Norbert discovered the Baptists and became a minister. He founded almost a dozen churches from Ukraine to Budapest. Yet slowly, his faith became more and more liberal. He left Bohemia under government threat and accepted a call to serve a Baptist church in New York City, until one day in 1919. That day, he wrote in his diary, "I cannot be a Baptist anymore, even in compromise. The fire of new desires, new worlds is burning inside me." Norbert and his wife Maya Capek joined a Unitarian church in New Jersey in 1921, for the same reason a whole lot of you did. Their children liked the religious education program. That's the power of our religious education teachers, and kids, that's your power too. World War I ended. His home country, now independent, he and Maya returned home to Czechoslovakia. His Unitarian church was the Prague Liberal Religious Fellowship. In just 20 years, his church had 3,200 members. The traditional Christian communion service of bread and wine wouldn't meet the needs of his congregation because his church, like ours, had people who believed different things. Capek turned to the beauty of the countryside, to the beauty of flowers. In 1923, he developed the flower ceremony. He asked his congregants to bring a flower to church from their gardens, the field, or the roadside. He invited each person to place their flower in a vase. There was the church community. There was the church community, no less unique for being united. Following the service, each person could take a flower from the vase, a different one than they had brought. Capek was a visionary minister with a church ahead of its time, a bold church, a church thinking beyond its doors, beyond what it thought possible. It was a church that was willing to take risks, to make tough decisions, to bear disappointment, and to build a new way, first by building a church, and that church would build up the world. That is our church. That was Capek's church. For this, the Gestapo arrested him in 1942. The Nazis accused Capek of listening to foreign broadcasts and sent him to the Dachau concentration camp. Even in starvation and torture, he held a flower ceremony with his fellow prisoners, finding whatever flowers they could among the weeds of the camp. They testified to a beauty larger than themselves and a love that would outlive the world, outlive them in the world. The Nazis killed Norbert Capek, but his spirit, courage, and commitment live on today. Those qualities have passed now to us to make them real. His wife, Maya, brought the flower ceremony to the Unitarian Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts in 1940. And what we are about to do is not a historical reenactment of something over and done, but an affirmation of our continuity with the generations of struggle ever widening. Wait. This flower ceremony, lovely though it is, isn't a diversion from ugly reality, but a gentle fierceness which proclaims that in the midst of sinister days there is always a light of beauty. We are here not to recall something that happened, but to remember something that is happening, to remember, to put back together again. And in that remembering, may we put ourselves back together again, each as a part of the body of this community. Out of many, one. Today, we celebrate this ritual of solemnity and joy. For those of you watching our service online, I invite you to take out your smartphone, open the camera app, and point it at the QR code. It will open to the UU Miami donation page, or you can go to uumiami.org and click the donate button. Please check if the donation is part of your pledge to the church or a one-time donation. It'll help us allocate your funds properly. And those who are present with us in the sanctuary, there will be a basket passed around for your donation. Or you can also point your phone at the QR code. Today you will have an opportunity not only to donate to this congregation, but also to pact people acting in community together. This congregation is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place of work, this place, and the work we do in the world, for we are now the keepers of the dream.
So today is the 100th anniversary of the Flower Communion. For 100 years, Unitarians and then Unitarian Universalists have engaged in this ritual. Think about that. Thousands of flower communions have happened in the past 100 years. We just heard about ones that happened in the Dachau concentration camp, but they've also happened in congregations all throughout the world. And then all of you, yes, all of you, even if today is your first time encountering the Flower Communion, are now a part of that 100-year history. The ritual of the flower communion is simple. Everyone brings a flower, and everyone receives a flower they didn't bring. It's a celebration of how we all bring different gifts into the world and how we can learn to appreciate each other's gifts. Every congregation that celebrates it does it a little differently, and not all congregations participate. We've had a little bit of confusion this morning because some congregations, you don't bring up the flowers until the actual communion itself. UU Miami's kind of always had some flowers in the front for the beginning, but it's different where different congregations are. I believe that the flower communion was actually not an annual practice for UU Miami, but something that was celebrated every few years or so. It's become an annual practice partially because I got on the worship committee and I love this service, and I was like, we're doing this every year, folks. I fought that battle with Chris Kirchner and I won. So why would I fight that battle? Why would I argue for it? Because this is my favorite service. Today I'm going to share 3 memories of flower communion's past for me, my past, to try and show you why I love this so much. And then I will give you space to come up to the Joys and Concerns mic to talk about flower communions from your past so you can share why this service means so much to you. And then we will actually do the flower communion ritual together. So I am a self-raised Unitarian Universalist. I went to my first Unitarian Universalist congregation in Columbus, Ohio in the 90s as a teenager because I became obsessed with the Transcendentalists, and I wanted to attend the same church that they did. Admittedly, my mother had tried to sell my dad on going to a Unitarian church when I was younger by saying, Unitarians believe that God is in this rock. And my dad looked at her and said, no, we're not doing that. We stayed a non-religious household. So before dorky teenage me decided I wanted to go to the same church as Ralph Waldo Emerson, I was a real dorky teenager. I hadn't had much traditional religious ritual experience. I've actually only ever witnessed a traditional Christian communion twice. Once was at a Catholic funeral that I went to this past year, and once was where a Christian Unitarian minister gave a service on the practice of communion and offered it as a way of expressing what the practice meant to him. I share this to provide some insight to why this ritual lands with me so deeply, because there's a deep-seated need for ritual in me that I didn't know I had until I started attending these church. So I started attending a Unitarian congregation. Sometimes I feel among long-term UUs that there is an assumption that everyone comes here as a refugee from other religions, and that isn't true. There are folks who are raised Unitarian Universalist. There are folks who are raised without religion and wanted something more. And there's me, who's somehow both. I didn't bring a flower to my first flower communion because I didn't know what it was going to be. I was just like, flower communion, okay. But there were flowers enough for everyone, just like we have flowers enough for everyone today. I don't remember the sermon or the poems that were read. I assume there was a recounting of the first flower communion and the explanation of why we were doing this ritual created in 1923, but I don't remember it. What I vividly remember of that first flower communion that my young me experienced was the ritual itself and the hymn we sang. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, from this we live. I remember singing the song as the flowers were exchanged and feeling this profound sense of meaning. I don't have words for it, which is really, really frustrating as someone who actually makes money as a professional writer. Really frustrating, guys. But I felt it here. I felt just overwhelmed. Young, dorky teenage me was overwhelmed with the repetition of the song, the solemnity and the joy and the exchange of flowers just awed me. Memory is a funky and wonderful thing. I remember how it felt, how true it felt, that we are all different and weird and wonderful, and together we share, and from this we live. It was amazing. My second memory that I'm going to share happened in this congregation. It was a week before the first flower communion that I was going to lead here. And Ray Baumel, an elder of our congregation and professional holy fool, told me he was going to bring a weed. And so I looked at Ray, and I was like, game on, sir. And I wrote it into a skit for that service, where Ray played a grandfather at the very first flower communion. Capek had told his community to bring flowers for this new ritual, and the grandfather Ray played said that he was going to bring the most amazing flower of all, a weed. This very much upset his granddaughter in the skit, who wanted the new ritual to be perfect. But in the skit, she ended up realizing his wisdom. If we are all flowers, if you are that daisy, and she is that tulip, and he is that sunflower, then the weeds are also among us, those who are a little different, a little uncared for, whose virtues have not yet been discovered. Because that's what Way was pointing out when he wanted to bring in a weed, that if this ritual is to have power, it's because it celebrates diversity. And then, yes, we need to embrace the weeds. Weeds are only flowers that you've decided don't belong in your garden. Maybe they're a little different, but they do belong somewhere. And the third and final memory of the flower communion I'm going to share with you guys comes from my time at another congregation about 15 years ago. This congregation was going through a lot of upheaval. They were in a crossroads in a lot of ways. They needed to decide if they would rather invest in a building or a minister. And this congregation had decided that they would prefer to have a building and be lay-led than to rent space and have a minister. I am truncating a very complicated story here for this service, but I've actually written a long play about this experience. I'm happy to tell you more about the whole thing at some point, but this is the basics of what happened. Now, I loved this minister dearly. They had literally saved my life when I was suicidal, and I was very hurt by the choice and the way the congregation made it. They didn't just make the choice of the building over the minister and ministry that I found life-saving. They did that and tried to insist to me that I was wrong for valuing ministry in the moment that saved my life. And none of these people were bad or wrong. They just had a different long-term vision for what this congregation would look like. But I was very young. I was 26 years old, and I was very hurt. So one of the best practices for Unitarian Universalist ministers is that when they leave a congregation, they completely disconnect from that congregation for a period of 3 years. So I was going to be saying goodbye to someone who gave me hope when I felt hopeless. And to 26-year-old me, 3 years seemed like a very, very long time. And the flower communion was going to be the final service that this minister that I loved, who saved my life, was going to lead for this congregation. And at this service, we also sang From You I Receive. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. And the weight of this song and this ceremony hit me really differently at this flower communion. Yes, we shared beautiful blossoms, and from this we lived. But in that flower communion, I was very aware of the temporal nature of flowers. They're beautiful, and then they're gone. And the ritual had new meaning for me. That part of this communion isn't that we need just that we celebrate all of each other, but we celebrate all of each other in this moment, because this moment right now is all we have. I've been a member of 7 congregations, which is a lot for a 40-year-old who started going to church as a teenager. Not every congregation I've been a part of has celebrated the Flower Communion, and each congregation has celebrated it differently. As I said, some come up and bring up flowers during the ceremony, some start with them in the beginning. It's all different tapestry of how they work. We've chosen different songs, different ways of blessing and sharing the flowers, different times of year to present it. Sometimes, for some congregations, it's connected to an Easter service. Some congregations, like ours, are presenting it now at the switch from spring to summer, and some present it in the early spring. In its 100-year history, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of different memories that people have taken away from this ritual. I've just shared 3 that resonate very strongly with me, and I now invite you to come up and share your memories of past flower communions if you wish. It's not a requirement, but if someone feels wanting to share, I'd love for that to happen. All right, so here's how we're going to do this ritual. Here's how we're going to frame it. As you might have expected, because I'm leading it, we're going to sing the song. So as it's going to be sort of like, we'll have Carly lead the hymn and Joseph will play, and we'll kind of sing it collectively as we go through the ritual. If you have a flower, please sing it while you're singing. Bring up your flower to leave, and take a flower as you go home. Take a flower to go with you to go home. And then once you all have your flowers in your hands and are back to your seats, I'm going to do a blessing of you guys in the flowers. All right? Thank you all.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from
As you look at the flowers in your hands, I'm going to leave you with this English translation of a blessing of the flowers from Capek. In the name of what is holy, in the name of what is good, in the name of that which gives life, we have gathered here in this place today. We have been given life to live under the aspect of eternity, for that is the source of happiness, to work on ourselves and to bring happiness into our lives, to be as valid as possible to others with whom we are connected by invisible relationships. You, the flowers, remind us of the wonderful simplicity of the natural order and that we too are a part of it. You remind us of the beauty and harmony of diversity. You remind us that one can feel and perceive and live unity in diversity and diversity in unity. Let the spirit of creative life unite us as it reigns among us. Thank you.
In closing today, I invite you to rise in body or spirit to join me in singing our hymn number 1051, We Are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God.
universe, who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe, who we are.
I'll give you your space. Little, is that the peacock? That's the peacock. Everyone at home, there's a peacock who wants to do the announcements today. But it's my turn. So, thank you, everyone. Thank you to Steve Snyder for running our live stream. Joseph Toledo for accompanying our hymns and playing so beautifully. Thank you, Carly, for leading us in singing the hymns. Thank you, Diane, for purchasing and serving lunch today. Thank you for our greeters. I think I saw Zoltan greeting. And finally, thank you, all of you. Our hearts are warmed by you being here with us and us being here with you. For announcements, it's just one little announcement. Usually there's a lot of announcements, but I think we're heading into the summer. So for more announcements, please watch for your weekly email newsletter. If you're not getting the weekly news from UU Miami, please let us know. We'll be sure that you do. You can also visit our website for upcoming online programming and all of the stuff that we do here at the Unitarian Church. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Yes. All right, we're going to close today's service with a blessing from Thomas Rhodes. Within our hands, we hold the resurrection of the world. Transient and imperfect, these blossoms are still gifts of infinite value, like ourselves. Too often we seek permanence and perfection, resisting change, blind to our shortcomings. We become caught up in the petty issues and routine activities of our daily lives. But may these flowers serve as a reminder as they allow themselves to open up to the heavens, for despite their imperfections, they still have integrity, and though they are transient, they contain the seeds of transcendence, like ourselves. Let us then also open up ourselves to mystery and wonder, fretting not about small mishaps, or even for now, great misfortune. For the resurrection of the world is at our fingertips. The resurrection lies within us. Thank you all for being here today.